Happy Arvo. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me yet again today. We're back at it with this video. I watched the first half of this video last week, reacted to that. If I'm smart, I would link to it somewhere. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But that's part one. This is part two. She just got done talking about how chicken breasts are like 7 times bigger here in the States, which is pretty mysterious. They must work out more. But yeah, let's listen to the last 4 or 5 reasons why Australia is better than America by Kinda Australian. Great video so far. I'm enjoying reacting to it. So go check out her channel, link down below. Let's do it.
In Australia is just such a better quality than it is over in the States. Now this one you'll probably see on a couple of lists, but having the GST or sales taxes already added into the price over here is so much more convenient. I think I was so used to in the States having to think of, okay, at least put an extra 10% on top of that for whatever the sales tax is going.
Well, what's funny is, I would really like this, but my wife would probably hate it. You know what I mean? Because here in the States, anytime she wants to buy something, she's like, oh, it's only $49. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's actually like $55. But my point is, when you want something, you can kind of conveniently, it's $49. You can forget that the sales tax is not included. And then when you don't want to buy something, that is, the reason that pushes me over the edge. Oh yeah, and I have to still pay tax on it. They're 8%. I think that is. There's also other interesting implications, like here in America, paying in cash is really inconvenient because of sales tax, because it always brings the total to like some random number. So you're always going to get some random change and pennies back, because it's, something for $3 is actually $3.18.
Gonna be some places it's 6%, some places it's 8%. If you go to places like Delaware, there's no tax, but I didn't live close
I didn't know that.
enough to Delaware to ever really go there. Whereas over here in Australia, I don't have to worry about that. If a tag says it's $19, it's $19. If I want to buy a sweater and it's $25, it's $25. So
that also makes me wonder, almost everything here in America is priced like $24.99, $9.99. But if you guys just do it in a flat amount, like $25, that really is very convenient for paying in cash. That's way more convenient.
Over in the States, and it says $25. In my head, I'm going, okay, so take an extra $2.50 just to be sure. So it's probably going to be like $27.50 when you actually get to the register, maybe a little bit less. All of this extra like math and jumbling around in my head just to see what the sales tax might be or is going to be when I get to the register. I feel like it's such an unnecessary stress that a lot of stores put on customers over in the States. I don't see.
Right, and that is something to remember, is that's the store doing that. You know what I mean? The store is the one having to pay the sales tax when they make a sale. It really feels illegal to not include that in the price. Like, the more you think about it, it's like they're selling me it for a price, and then they're supposed to pay a tax out of that sale. How are you gonna hide that, just not include that and make it seem like I'm the one paying the tax? Something odd about it. Obviously, it's like false advertising, basically.
See why it isn't more regulated, that the sales tax is already included. You're not going to have extra taxes added on when you get to the register. Like buying
and then don't even forget about when it's a car. That will make you really angry. You go to buy a car, $22,000. Don't forget, it's another $2,000 because of the sales tax. You don't forget that, because that's a huge addition to the price.
Clothes is one thing, but when you're going grocery shopping in the States, some food isn't taxed. Some paper products
That's
aren't
true.
taxed, and then some of it is, and some of it has extra taxes on top of it.
If they like package it at the store or make it at the store, it's not taxed. Something like that. Something like that. I don't know.
Like where I was from in
If it's like organic or like fruits and vegetables, generally if it's healthy for you, it's not taxed.
Philly, we actually had what they called a soda tax. So any sodas or juices, anything that really had high sugar content in it was even more taxed on top of it. It's so confusing over in the States. I don't know why it isn't like it is over here.
That really makes me mad, that whole like soda tax stuff. Luckily they don't do that over here in Indiana. But it just kind of makes me, it's like they'll frame it like, "Oh, we're making you healthier." But, by charging you more for your soda. It's like, "No, you're just taking more of my money. You're not trying to help me. You're just taking more of my money."
Where what it says on the price tag is what you actually pay at the register. It's so much more convenient. So if you guys are liking this so far, hit the like and subscribe button down below to join our little Amer-Australian family. I post on Mondays and normally Thursdays about the differences between
Definitely go check
America.
out her channel.
Over here in Australia, also the mentality behind it, and that is TAFE. Over here in Australia, you can leave school at year 10. Once you're done year 10, you can leave. You're technically finished. It's kind of similar to
What?
having a GED over
How did I not know that?
in the States. You don't have to finish year 11, year 12. Most people who do are expected to go to uni at that point. Whereas over here
What? So what percent of kids do go to 11 and 12? I assume most.
in Australia, you have TAFE, which is kind of similar to trade schools over in the States, but here there are so many more options. In the States, you have the jobs where you really work with your hands, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, welders. You have some
So you
IT
go to that straight after year 10?
work, you have beauticians and cosmetology schools, and that's the bulk of trade schools over in the States. Over here, there's a similar structure, but there's even more available through TAFE. And on top of that, people aren't shamed for taking courses through TAFE over here. I know so many people who felt guilty or who felt like they were unworthy or something like that for going to trade schools over in the States.
Yeah. There's some kind of stigma with that, which is really stupid because those people end up making more money than half the people that go to university over here.
Even some trade schools where you walked out and you had an associate's degree at the end of the program. Like over here in Australia, people think it's perfectly acceptable to go to TAFE, or if you go to uni,
That's because it is.
going part-time is considered pretty normal over here. If you're doing part-time over in the States, typically it's because you're a little bit older, you probably have kids, or you have a full-time job that you're trying to juggle around.
Yeah.
I know people who are in their early 20s who had basically full-time jobs or who had part-time jobs where they would work 3, even 4 days a week and work uni around that. There wasn't this mentality that you had to block another 4 years of your life to go to another institution to get a bachelor's degree that's probably not even going to be in the field you end up working in anyway. Like I could get in
This TAFE thing is really interesting to me. Like I want to learn more about that. I'm definitely jotting that down just to react to something that dives a little deeper into that. I'm surprised I didn't know that. You can leave school after year 10. I mean, here in America, I actually don't know the laws as far as dropping out of school. Like, I know of people who dropped out of school, like, at year 8. I don't know the law around it. But most people, obviously, the great majority of people go to year 12. That's the goal.
into the field that I was in and why I left. Again, I might do that student loan horror video and tie that into it, who knows. Let me know in the comments down below. But leaving school at year 10 and going into TAFE and going into a trade is so much more acceptable over here in Australia than it seems to be in the States.
The only thing difficult about that it sounds like to me is knowing exactly like what trade you want to go into when you're 16 years old or 15 years old. That would be kind of hard. But if you did, then that's great.
Like tradies and plumbers and electricians and whatnot seem so much more respected over here in Australia as well compared to the
So is
States.
that why you guys have that name, tradies, like that term? Is it because there's, those are the people that went to TAFE and became tradesmen? Because over here, that's not really, it's not, I don't know. We don't really have a term for those people. I mean, we do, they're like more blue collar tradesmen, but it's just not as distinguished like when it's talked about, if that makes sense. That doesn't make much sense, I feel like, but I tried.
It's almost like if you had to work a trade, unless you actually own the business, then a lot of people almost seem to think that you were a failure in a lot of ways because you didn't go to college, you didn't go to uni, you don't have your own business, you're working for somebody else, even though they have a probably pretty well paying and
I mean, most people who go to university are working for someone else too. Obviously. And the thing about going to trade school, I've always thought, one of the great things about it is you can very easily open your own business with a whole lot of different trades, whether it's plumber, electrician, or whatever. You can get a job or you can make it your own business. I think that's pretty cool. Unlike something like, I don't know, graphic design, which obviously you can. Something like computer science or something, you can make it your own business, but it's not quite as easy. It doesn't fit quite into that hole as well as something like being a plumber as your own business. That's pretty straightforward. You're just, you're a plumber.
steady career. Now this one, it still trips me up. I am still learning this, but I like that Australia has the metric system. And even though I'm not used to it, it still trips me up time and time again. I do overall like that it is consistent with like 98% of the rest of the world. I remember talking with a couple of my colleagues. Most of them are in Australia. Some of them came from different countries as well. My manager is actually from...
The fact that the US hasn't switched to the metric system is pretty bewildering to me by now. Actually, kind of the funny thing is, from what I hear, like, we basically do use the metric system on like an internal level, like the government and stuff. It's just not like at the consumer everyday level. We use our stupid metrics. Although I will say, well, something I've always thought is that the foot is a very useful size. There's a lot of things that, it's like, it's about a foot, 2 feet. The meter is great and all, but I wish you guys had another unit that was about this big. Does that make sense? Like, I get that you can just say 25 centimeters, but when you're talking about someone, how tall someone is, 6 feet. That's pretty quick. That's pretty good. Maybe that's kind of feels kind of silly to say, but I don't know. That's just how I feel, guys. I like this measurement. I was gonna say I like this size, and I should not say that, and I shouldn't have even said that I was gonna say that. Let's continue.
From Portugal. But overall, they were talking about the weather and talking about how it's going to be 16 degrees today. It's so chilly. I'm freezing cold. And I'm sitting here thinking 16 degrees. How is it not snowing outside? That's absolutely... Oh, no, wait. I'm thinking 16 degrees Fahrenheit, not 16 degrees Celsius.
And you know what? While I'm on the topic of saying, things I do like about our stupid measurement units over here, Fahrenheit for the weather, I think it's pretty good. I do think it's pretty good because it's a more wide range. And 0 to 100, it's more like a human range. Because all you really got to know is 100 is really freaking hot. Like to go outside if it's 100 degrees, that's really freaking hot. 0, that's really freaking cold. You go outside at 0 degrees, that is really cold. And they're both equally possible. You know what I mean? Like the distribution is pretty even. You know, you do get some 0 degree days, you get some 100 degree days over here in Indiana, for example, and most are, somewhere in between. And I think that on a human type scale, that's pretty cool.
And this has happened so many times, especially when it comes to weather and when it comes to distance. If somebody says something,
Now, for science and stuff, obviously it's much worse. Way worse. Celsius makes a million times more sense that's the freezing point at 0 and boiling point at 100. Of course, that makes way more sense.
is 100 kilometers away. And yes, I know I keep saying kilometers instead of kilometers. It's one of those things that's probably going to take a little while to fade out. One of those accents.
I always forget which one. People are like, it's kilometers. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't remember kilometers, kilometers. I don't know, whichever.
Things. But if something's 100 kilometers away, in my head, I automatically translate that to 100 miles, whereas 100 kilometers would actually be like 60 miles. I'm still not completely used to the metric system. I'm getting better when it comes.
I do that too. You know what's weird? There's the most common race, foot race, over here in America is the 5K. The 5K. Why is that? It's like the only thing we measure in metric system is that race. The 5K. Everybody, especially if it's for like a charity thing. It's like, yeah, I'm running a 5K for charity. Why did we do that? I have no idea why we do that. But I think maybe the reason is it sounds a little bit better than because it's just a higher number than saying, oh, I'm running a 2-mile race. That doesn't sound as good as the 5K.
Comes to things like the weather and baking and a little bit more with distance, but when it comes to measurements like fluid ounces and whatnot, I don't know the difference between a liter and a gallon and a cup and 50 milliliters. I don't.
And with the liters, for whatever reason, we use liters for soda. 2 liter. It's a 2-liter bottle.
No. So I'm getting used to having different comparisons, different sizes, and a lot of people in my comments have been really nice, giving me ideas and suggestions to sort of get used to the difference. And overall, I'm so much better than I was 6 months ago when I first moved over here. But I do love that Australia has the metric system, whereas America is one of 3 countries that uses the imperial system. The drinking age over here in Australia, and this I know is really controversial for a lot of Americans, especially those between the ages of 18 and 21.
What is the drinking age in Australia again? I feel like I should know this. My memory sucks. That's one thing, if you don't know about me, just so you know, my memory sucks. So I'm sorry. I'm sure I learned that. Is it 18?
But overall, I like that the drinking age over here is 18, not because, oh, well, now you're younger and you can start doing really stupid stuff at an earlier age. No, I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like, you're 18, you're an adult. It's that simple. Why should the government still be telling you what you can and can't drink? It's that simple. I don't care that it's stupid. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't go binge drink. Yeah, you shouldn't do that at 15, 18, 20. But when you're 18, when you're below 18, okay, you're a kid. You're dumb. We've decided as a society. But 18's the mark. We said it. That's when you can sign a contract. That's when you can go to war. So yeah, let them drink.
I personally think that if you're old enough to vote, if you're old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes, if you're old enough to sign up for the military.
Well, over here, You can't buy a pack of cigarettes anymore until you're 21.
And die for your country, you should be allowed to have a beer at
How messed up is that? You can't even be out there on the battlefield with a cigarette. I feel like that's like iconic. Like the soldier in the foxhole, he's smoking a cigarette. And it's kind of like it's sad, but it's kind of like an interesting thing. You know, it's like he doesn't have much concern for his health because he's already putting his life on the line. Let him smoke a cigarette. I'm sure they still do.
a pub. And that is not something that you see over in the States. I know a lot of people who do think that the drinking age needs to be lowered, but with a lot of things going on in the States right now, that is not exactly a top priority for a lot of people. But overall, besides the inconveniences, besides the fact that statistically it doesn't stop people from drinking at a younger age, people tend to start around the same age over here in Australia and over in the States, unless they're strict rule followers and do actually wait until they're legal, which, to be honest, is a pretty small subsect of people over in both countries. But personally, I think if you're old enough to vote and
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, most people are drinking before 18, let alone before 21.
you're old enough to sign up for the military, you should be old enough to drink and old enough to buy cigarettes. Why in the States is you can't wait until you're 21 to buy smokes, but you have to wait till you're 21 to drink. I think if that was a little bit more consistent with vices, that might make a little bit more sense. But
Well, now it is. Now they're both 21. Whoop-de-doo. At least they're consistent. Consistently stupid.
even then, it still doesn't. 18, it's just at 18, you're a legal adult across the board. Just leave it at that. It makes so much more sense.
Yeah, let's just why don't we just move everything up to 21? No contracts, can't buy a house, can't go to the military. Move it all up to 21. They're not going to do that.
And finally, this one was actually on my 2022 vision board, and I love that this is a thing over here in Australia, and that is superannuation. Over here in Australia, your employer pays 10% into a
This is pretty cool. I reacted to like a whole thing about this.
superannuation account for you, whether you work part-time, whether you work casual, whether you work full-time. Superannuation is still included in your job over here. Whereas over in the States, you're lucky if you open up a 401k and your company gives you a 5% match on whatever money you put in. You still have to take money out of your own paycheck in order to save up, and companies
Right. It's kind of like, I don't know. There is something funny about that. They're like, hey, we'll match you. It's like, can you just give me the 5%, please? Why do I need to match? I need to give up. And then you got to do it. You got to take 5% more out of your paycheck. They're withholding taxes. They're withholding Social Security. Now they're withholding 5% for your retirement. Like, oh my God.
pretty much lowball you on that. I know a lot of companies who will pay like 4% and that's it, or like 4% at 50, or like 4% up to 8% of what you put in. So like you have to put in 8% in order to get the 4%. They do very different things at very different companies.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say consistently across the board. But overall, if you have a 401k, you are contributing into your 401k and your employer is slightly, a little bit matching that. On top of that, you have to wait until you are fully vested. Otherwise,
The only exception is if you have a job like, I mean, of course, if you're like working for the government, they gave themselves awesome plans for retirement. But also, like if you work at like a public school, usually they will have better plans where you don't even necessarily have to contribute. At some of them, not all of them. But they'll give 10% without any contribution. But that's rare.
you might not get the money that your company put into your 401k. There are a lot of companies who you have to be with the company for 5 years, some even 10 years before you're considered fully vested in your 401k, and you actually get the money that the
That's just screwed up.
company put in there. If you're at the company for a year, let's say, and then you leave, you might get a small percentage of what they put in there, or you might not get any percentage of what the company put in there, just what you had contributed. Whereas over here in Australia,
That's screwed up.
superannuation doesn't come out of your paycheck. It's something that's discussed when you're applying for a job, so you know no matter what, you're definitely going to get the bare minimum, but I've seen some places do up to a 23%.
Whoa, 23%. Damn. Y'all are rolling in the dough when you retire. Actually, you're just not struggling to pay the bills. Maybe. Like so many people here in America.
Contribution into a superannuation. So even though there are issues going on right now with what might possibly be happening with superannuation and whatnot, government stuff, let's not get into that. Overall, I do love that superannuation is actually a built-in system over here in Australia. Yes, you have the option to invest and create like a sort of separate savings account. You can contribute extra into your super account. There are different ways that you can save up for retirement over here, but at least with a superannuation account, it is already money that is put aside for you when you reach retirement age. And admittedly, with inflation and whatnot, it's going to be really tough to live on for like 30 years if the regular retirement age is 65 and life expectancies keep going up. But that doesn't stop people from being able to contribute to their own retirement to at least have something available when you reach retirement age. Whereas over in the States, I know a lot of people who didn't really start saving for retirement up until they reach like 55 and retirement age is 65. So how much are you really going to be able to save up in 10 years? So
Not much. Yeah, it is scary. Like she said, with life expectancy going up, it's like, how late are we going to have to work? You're going to have to work till you're like 75, 80 years old.
all in all, I do love that Australia has superannuation over here. I think it is a great system, something that I really, really wish would be implemented over in the States, even though I know that is never, ever going to happen. So that's it.
Yeah. Sad.
For this video, you guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit the like and subscribe.
Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. That was a great video. Go check out her channel. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know how how is this 27 minutes long? I only reacted to like 10 minutes of... Damn. I must have went on some rants. Thank you for anyone who sat through that and enjoyed it even. Thank you. I hope to see you again. Have a good day.